the squad is Commander Theo Coop, and we back with another one. Watch this clip.
Miller, his name did surface in court testimony involving a case where his former teammate and another man, they've been indicted for capital murder in the fatal shooting of 23-year-old Jamea Harris in January. The University of Alabama has described Miller as a cooperating witness. How is this factoring, if at all, into how teams are evaluating him?
Yeah, Malika, part of the...
I don't think it would be brought up at all if it wasn't for Malika just bringing it up on national television right now.
I absolutely agree. That clip was something I found on Twitter. If you guys were unaware, Friday night was the NBA draft, and with the number 2 pick, the Charlotte Hornets selected Alabama star Bran Miller. After the Hornets made their pick, that is known black man hater Malika Andrews. And if you're unfamiliar with Malika, let me give you a bit of a refresher. But before we do, let's check out some comments here on Twitter. Look at these comments right here. Malika Andrews and Candace Owen when it comes to tearing down black men. Malika Andrews when it's time to ruin a man's biggest day of his life. Malika Andrews whenever it looks like black men are enjoying themselves. Malika Andrews draft coverage
is hot garbage.
Still trash.
He's trash.
He's still trash.
Basura.
This one right here says Malika Andrews is worse than Vlad TV. I think you guys are starting to get the point. But if you guys are unfamiliar with Bran Miller or the situation that Malika Andrews was mentioning during the draft, check out this video.
Here's ABC's Ellen Lopez.
Miller sneaks down court.
Tonight, Alabama basketball star Bran Miller hitting the court against Arkansas amid questions about a fatal shooting. The freshman and top NBA draft pick prospect at the center of the controversy applauded today, but booed earlier this week as calls to take him off the court grow.
There are many who think, hey, Brandon has done nothing wrong here. But then there are those others who say, hey, it doesn't matter if he was firing a weapon or not, he should be punished.
According to ESPN, the 6'9" player was asked by then teammate Darius Miles to bring him his gun, which officials say was used in the killing of 23-year-old Jamea Harris. Miles was removed from the team and arrested along with another man, both now facing capital murder charges. Both of their attorneys have either not responded to our request for comments or have declined to do so. Miller has not been charged with any crime. The Crimson Tide stating in part that it, quote, continues to cooperate fully with law enforcement in the ongoing investigation and that Miller is not considered a suspect in this case, only a cooperative witness.
We feel like we've done the right thing in this case. We're using this as an opportunity to educate our players on stuff that hopefully will help them for the rest of their lives.
And what the victim's mother tells us, she wants everyone involved to be held accountable. Miller's attorney says that the player never touched the gun or even saw it.
So as you can see, Bran Miller was never charged with any crime. Till this day, he's never been charged. And if you look at this article from the sportnews.com, Alabama.com reporter Gerald Robinson asked Tuscaloosa Chief Assistant District Attorney Paula Whitney why Miller wasn't charged in the shooting death of Harris, responding Willie, that's not a question I can answer. There's nothing we can charge him with. And of course, it goes without saying that it's extremely unfortunate that that young lady lost her life, that she was bleeded by what appears to be Darius Miles, as well as his accomplice, who was also charged. Even though she was killed, those 2 men accused of the crime, they're going through the judicial system right now as we speak. So for Malika Andrews to bring that up as if Bran Miller was also charged in that, it's unnecessary. But Malika Andrews has a reputation for doing this. I remember there's a player, I believe Cameron Payne, player for Michigan State, who I think he dabbled in and out of the league, the one who ended up being killed. And if I remember correctly, he was actually murdered protecting a woman. Malika Andrews has something to say about that.
Shifting gears, former Michigan State star Adrian Payne was shot and killed in Orlando, Florida, early Monday morning, the Orange County Sheriff's Office said. And Payne was the 15th pick by the Atlanta Hawks in 2014. Played 4 seasons in the NBA with multiple teams. In 2018, he was waived by the Magic after he was named in a report by ESPN's Outside the Lines that he'd been involved in an alleged sexual assault at Michigan State in 2010. No charges were filed in that case. Prior to playing in the NBA, Payne was a member of the All Big Ten second team in 2 of his 4 seasons with Michigan State. So Draymond Green, who was Payne's teammate for 2 seasons in Michigan, tweeted this. You can see the broken heart emojis on Monday. Payne was 31 years old.
There was also the Ime Udoka situation with Boston where the head coach of the Boston Celtics was fired for having inappropriate relations with another woman on his staff. That woman's name was never mentioned in the report, even though she admitted it was consensual. And Malika Andrews took objection to that and had a back and forth with Stephen A. Smith that was extremely unprofessional. Stephen A. Smith, who's also nearly twice her age, stood on his ground and put her ass in check.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. what became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that, I just wanted to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. The fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
First of all, let me be very clear. I don't appreciate where you're going with that. I'm not blaming anybody but Ime Udoka. He deserves, the fact of the matter is, I've said he deserved to be fired if they were going to fire him. If you're not going to fire him, then don't fire him. My issue is all of this being publicized. The point that I'm trying to make is just like you're not mentioning. Excuse me. I listened to you. You're the one telling me to stop on my show. It ain't happening. Okay, that's number one. And my point is, considering how pervasive this kind of stuff has existed in professional sports for many years, my whole point is that, excuse me, make sure that you handle it in the same fashion it has always been handled. You could have fired him, and then we could have speculated till the cows come home, but he's gone. That is the only point that I was trying to make. I'm not trying to attack anybody, and if anybody deserves to be attacked, it's Ime Udoka for putting himself in this position. I've made that very clear.
And I think actually before the Stephen A. interaction, I'm pretty sure she kicked Kendrick Perkins off the show for having a similar stance and just voicing that he wasn't the only one who technically did wrong, Ime Udoka, even though he ended up losing his job.
Accountability, okay? Accountability doesn't just go to Ime Udoka, okay? Accountability goes to the other people that played a part in that as well. When they asked, is anybody else going to be punished? And they said no. These relationships that was had with Ime Udoka and one of these women, it was consensual.
Well,
that's the problem that I have right now. Everybody got to be held accountable.
Without having all of the information, it is unfair and irresponsible of us to go and to speculate on that, because what we have to...
Well, I'm not speculating. Sure. I have the information. I'm not speculating.
But what we have to go with here is the fact that an independent law firm came in, did this investigation, and the facts that they were presented, they came to the conclusion that Ime Udoka violated a policy that warranted a 1-year suspension.
And then Ime Udoka is gone from Boston like she wanted. When they bring in the new coach, Joe Mazzulla, he goes deep into the record books, brings up things from when he was in college.
And Woj, you reported that Joe Mazzulla will be the interim head coach here. You can see his resume on your screen. He's been a Celtics assistant coach the last 3 seasons after spending the previous 3 seasons at Fairmount State. And he played for West Virginia between 2006 and 2011, and now could become the NBA's youngest head coach at 34 years old. And we'd be remiss not to also mention that Mazzulla was arrested twice at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault. He pled guilty, paid a fine, and then again in 2009 for domestic battery after an incident at Morgantown Bar. The domestic battery case never went to trial. It was settled in August of 2009. He paid a $100 fine and court costs, plus had to do 40 hours of community service. Now, That was 13 years ago. He settled and paid both fines. So, Woj, why are the Celtics choosing him as their next head coach?
Malika Andrews has proven to herself that she has an extreme bias when it comes to black men. She always brings up the mistakes or charges or accusations of men. Typically black men, though. I've yet to see a video of her giving her opinion on Dana White or whenever there's a white person or a white male in those same situations. But what the hell do I know? I'm just a weed head talking on YouTube. You guys let me know what you think after party in the comments. It's your commander, Theo Coop, but you can
call me bitch.
Do better. Squad. All out.
Excuse me, bitches?